Welcome to Rent Wars. This week we discuss Preet Bharara's major news. He has taken on Shelly Silver and arrested the Speaker of the New York State Assembly, Sheldon Silver. And boy, is he showing how the corruption works. And this is some complicated corruption. As you would expect, Mr. Silver is a lawyer, and the rules of the state legislature allow um, legislators to still serve as private attorneys. So there's sort of layers and layers of complication to this prosecution. Now, I think this definitively answers the question of does he just attack and prosecute a few African American and Latino legislators, and the answer is clearly no. And as I said too, my concern is if they're just targeting African American, Latino legislators, and not that I know whether or not they're guilty or not. But clearly he is not taking on the easy targets, the low-hanging fruit who don't have giant wads of cash to defend themselves. Mr. Silver definitely has the wherewithal to defend himself, and he has the ties and connections. This is interesting, but it's abundantly clear that Mr. Bharara, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, is targeting corruption in general. Part of that is, we discussed black voting rights and minority voting rights, but part of this investigation that Bharara is doing, according to my sources, is looking into vote fixing right here in New York City. And by vote fixing, I mean, problems with the machines, Board of Elections problems, things that have allowed the community to be disenfranchised of its right to vote. So, fantastic work. Bravo to Mr. Bharara for taking on these issues. Now, the corruption in the New York State Legislature is no secret, but the untouchable has always been Shelly Silver. Even Joe Bruno, who was the president of the state Senate, Republican president of the state Senate, even he has gone under attack, and his prosecution was very complicated as well, but nowhere near as complicated as Mr. Silver's. So basically, of the three men in a room, the two main players who were continuous have been indicted and are under active prosecution. So this is meaning the third man in the room is always, of course, the governor, whichever governor that might be. So the question is who's next? Is Cuomo, up for further investigation? But of course, Cuomo has not been there as long as Silver and Bruno. So you compare this to other so-called public corruption prosecutions, and you can see the difference in the quality of what's being done by the U.S. Attorney. When Governor Elliot Spitzer, was taken down, it was billed as government corruption. Well, basically, what did we find out? We found out that there wasn't enough to actually charge the man with a crime. You're just taking him out. And what were the allegations? That he used his own money to hire a hooker. Did he use government money? Did he use tax dollars? Did he use cops to shuttle the hookers back and forth to him? In fact, in no way did they actually show that it affected him as in terms of his ethics as a public representative. Of course, it was embarrassing and career-ending for a guy who basically would take down prostitution rings. But you compare this, here is the meat and potatoes of public corruption. The government officials are using their position to personally enrich themselves and their friends. The government officials use their ability to legislate to empower and basically just loot the treasury. So we have just a real textbook case here. There are actually two of them. So scheme number one, there's a real estate deal where there's the state controls these tax abatements and real estate deals, and then the real estate developers refer their work to Shelly Silver's hand-picked two-man law firm of his former assistant in the State House. And then there are referral fees secretly being kicked back to Shelly Silver. So, in other words, the actual State House, the arm of government, is being used to squeeze money out of people. And one of the charges is actually extortion. So this is very, very fascinating. So extortion can get complicated here, but basically, instead of an even playing field, it's like the ref at a basketball game taking payoffs for particular decisions. Now, scheme number two basically works as the state of New York issues these grants. So Shelly Silver issues grants, including Hurricane Sandy grants, to a doctor who he's an oncologist at Columbia University's Mesothelioma Center, which is related to asbestos. So these grants go to this doctor. In exchange, the doctor refers patients to a specific asbestos law firm. Now, this is worth a whole lot of money to that law firm. This law firm now kicks back $3 million in referral fees. So these referral fees go to Sheldon Silver. So basically, $500 worth of tax dollars, ill-gotten gain, gets sent to the doctor by Silver. So that's our money. And Silver nets that, turns that into $3 million worth of referrals fees from the law firm. And of course, the law firm's getting like $10 million, $20 million for these cases. So that is, by the book, corruption. Now you compare this to what Spitzer was alleged to have done when they sort of leaked all the stuff and basically shot down his governorship. Now, of course, it seems really ridiculous to have a man of Spitzer's quality taken down, but he made himself vulnerable while as a sitting governor, and that was a problem. But here we're talking about using the arm of government itself and the money of government and your position as one of the most powerful men in New York State to use New York State tax dollars to shake the money tree for yourself. Now, the problem with these prosecutions is where the line is drawn. Of course, everyone takes these positions for their own self-interest. They're not saints. Most politicians are not. And so everyone expects them to get a little bit of perks from the job. The question is, what's the limits? And what's allowed and what's not allowed. Now, obviously, for him to use state grant money to encourage this doctor to refer people to this law firm would be wrong. It would be, just it's using the state money. However, if the doctor took it upon himself to simply refer people to this particular law firm, that wouldn't be a problem. The question is how does the law firm then start sending Silver huge chunks of money? So this is probably going to be a complicated case, probably not as complicated as some of the white collar crimes, but it's going to be complicated in terms of what are the lines that are drawn. So this is the real public corruption McCoy. This is the real McCoy of public corruption. This is interesting, and what I like is he puts the details out there quickly. This is what he's being accused of. It's not, it's too complicated, we're not going to tell you that shell game that the Republican U.S. attorney did against Spitzer. This is out there and open, and here is what's alleged. Now, let's talk about Mr. Preet Bharara, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Now, obviously, as I said, I was concerned that he was targeting minority legislators. I was concerned that if that's what he was doing, that would be very bad. That is not what he's doing. He is targeting whoever he can who is committing these criminal acts and basically undermining our very democracy. So he is now, taken on somebody who has a lot of friends and who can fight back, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is very, very interesting because Shelly Silver is a character who has been considered beyond the reach of the corruption laws for the most part. Now, I have criticized and actually called Mr. Bharara a traitor based on based on his handling of the Cobra Gotti case and prosecution. It just made no sense to me, and it still makes no sense to me. But now I think it's pretty clear that there is just something going on in the State Department and in the White House where they just don't like our allies. And so I am going to have to retract that statement about the U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara. Let me tell you why. First of all, it really made no sense to go after a diplomat of an ally for not paying the maid as the governor, from her government, things like that. But number one, there were issues of the State Department made that decision, went to him, and he carried out their decision. They made the arrest. He made the preparations. Now it was bungled, immensely bungled, on a level that just makes you wonder. Who thought this thing up? Now, of course, he's the one holding the hot potato when it blows up in his face. But the question is who decided that there would be a strip search? Who decided to handle her in such a non-standard way to handle a diplomat? So, we know after this thing blew up, well, usually there's going to be a disavowal. Well, no, this lower official did something wrong. Instead of that, we had a lot of hedging and slip sliding from the higher ups. So now that sort of gives you the idea that this was done in sync with the Arab Spring debacles. uh, well, you have Libya, it's relatively stable. He's trying to, Gaddafi's trying to sort of make peace and, say, hey, I'm not with the Al Qaeda, I'm not one of the crazy guys. You take him out, and now you have, just total chaos, where extremists are stronger than ever. You have the entire Arab Spring, chaos, stronger than ever. You have Syria, chaos. Now you're going to take out Assad because he's a bad guy. And now you have these ISIS people who make Assad look like relatively peaceful in comparison. It's interesting because I spoke to someone who discussed Saddam Hussein, and how these situations, they're really bad, but how the people, if you don't do it right, the people who come after them can be even worse. So this looks like that same school of diplomacy. Wow. Well, that has nothing to do with Preet Bharara. This is, whoever's running that part of this administration's foreign policy really, really needs to wake up. This is bad. And apparently they are now. Now they're talking about, oh, we're going to help Assad take control again so that he can take out ISIS and ISIL, which all they do is talk about killing America. So, now whoever's running this thing decides to throw the son of a Sikh into the Indian headlights. This is not good. Now he's half Sikh and half Hindu. So, the Sikhs protest against India and protest, they're protesting against abuse. So it's very similar, for instance, to having a Palestinian U.S. attorney arrest an Israeli diplomat here in America. It's just like there's so many levels where if that's not part of the equation, that's the wrong way to handle it. If you wouldn't do that because it's like you're throwing gasoline on a fire. So they have pinned this on Mr. Bharara. They're basically having him be the face of America. Now, someone probably said, "Oh, well, he's Indian. That'll make it just dandy." But there's so many levels of that being wrong that it's insane, actually. But particularly because he is the son of a religious minority, to throw him into that as though he did it himself is really outrageous. What's interesting is the Indian government, and for the most part the Indian people, even though they vilify Mr. Bharara, they say this is the American administration playing nasty with us that you would never do with your other democratically governed allies, and that just shows their wisdom in determining where this came from. So this is coming from above Mr. Barrera's pay grade. So that was my criticism. And if it's coming from above him, then he's just following the orders. And even though they're not good and it's weird, it's not like him injecting his own personal thing into the foreign policy. That's coming from above him. He's following the rules relatively mechanically, and now he's vilified in his home country, which is really outrageous that anyone in the administration would do that to him. So I am withdrawing that my criticism of his handling, because my criticism was based on him using his own independent judgment to do this for his own needs, his own grievances. So now, one of my concerns was that why is he attacking an untouchable? So I want to talk about that because he has been helping a group of untouchables that matter very greatly to those of us here in America. The American untouchables in Rikers Island. And he has been applying the law where the law has not existed. He's investigating and looking into these things, and that is just impressive. Now, another criticism I had of him was that I was concerned that he was playing a political game, and one of the things that pissed me off was that he was basically allowing illegal Chinese immigrants, undocumented Chinese aliens who came on these buses, not buses, on these boats and planes in different ways, got here illegally. They were basically just letting them go. Oh, it's okay. We're just going after a couple of ringleaders and the snakes, and da-da. And my theory was that he was doing this so that he would have a Pan-Asian voting bloc. So by taking out the African American and Latino legislators, weakening them, and targeting these public officials, that he would then be able to swoop in with a separate minority group. Now, I don't think that's true anymore, because further information, I think I may have mentioned this before, it has been confirmed from on high in Washington that order to allow the Chinese illegal immigrants to stay without any fear of prosecution, even though they got caught lying, and this was lying to get immigration papers, where they would claim they're Christian when they're not. That came from on high in Washington. So once again, and so obviously they have the power to say don't touch this, and that's what they did. So the concern was selective enforcement. So you're going to treat Chinese people one way, oh, it's okay, and then treat non-Chinese people, and particularly blacks and Latinos, etc., another way, where they're being deported and locked up for committing perjury when they're doing these immigration hearings. Well, that wasn't his call. Maybe he could have pushed the issue, but if it's coming from on high, he would have suffered for pushing that issue. So, this administration has some strange priorities, and, they kind of land them in his lap where it looks like something else. So that definitely came from above his pay grade. Now, this attack on the inhumane conditions, we talk about Guantanamo Bay, but we have Rikers Island, where they're doing some pretty torturous stuff for people who aren't guilty yet. Or if they are guilty, they're guilty of some minor misdemeanor, so very low level crime, in order for them to be in Rikers Island as opposed to a state prison. And so, because of this situation, um, these these people, many of them kids, are taught very quickly that you have no rights. They're treated like slaves and abused, and they're being abused by black people and Hispanic people, minorities, who are the guards, majority of the guards here. And Preet Bharara is stepping in, and Robert Johnson too in the Bronx, and really shaking things up with much more power than Johnson can bring to bear. And I have to just say bravo to that. And on that note, thank you for watching Rent Wars. Next week we'll begin the Black History Month specials. Check out Rent Wars episodes online. Go to our website, www.rentwars.com, or to our YouTube channel that's on youtube.com. And you can pick up episodes of Rent Wars. All of our most recent episodes are up there. Our new episodes are going to be up there going forward. And our old episode library from our past 10 years, that which wasn't destroyed by corrupt federal judges, that is, will be put up there piece by piece as well over time. So check out rentwars.com